Hello, hello, hello. How are you doing today? Welcome to Cup of Joe with Joe live. Sorry for any of the delays, any of the confusion. I know my usual pre-announcement stuff got out a little bit late today. Started a new job. Yes, I did. It's one of the interesting things about getting out and actually, expanding your horizons after you do something as radical as dropping out of a congressional race, 60 days out from the election. Turns out some people weren't necessarily happy with that, but that is what it is. You play silly games, you win silly prizes. That's the way we do things. And yeah, get ready to go. All of you out there, hit the like button, hit the share button. Go to our Patreon, KRTD, do the search, find it, love it, make things happen. Of course, we also have the KRTD Media on Twitch account. Thanks for showing up, Mike. Love it. Love it. Run the Twitch account. Jimmy's going to be starting up her show, running on that. Lana, love you. Love you, woman. Love you. So today, we'll go ahead and get this knocked out right up front. Reason why is because last time I wanted to talk about it, and I didn't quite get to it. So, marijuana legalization. Okay, there's like 36 states in the union. We're down to like 6 that don't have it legalized in some way, shape, or form. Idaho, of which is one of them. Now, in 2022, we ran the first attempt, Kind Idaho. So some of you are familiar with it, some of you aren't. Go to kindidaho.org. And go ahead and post that up here real quick, because what I want to do, create a banner. This is kindidaho.org. Okay. Beautiful company. It is working on medical marijuana legalization in the state of Idaho. Okay. Medical. There's reasons for that. One of the big things is Kind Idaho is about the patients, because we believe patients deserve their medicine of choice. Whatever the reason, we know that marijuana, we know that medical cannabis works on several forms of treatment that are currently being used by several other organizations, that are currently being substituted by less than perfect medications that are being provided by big pharma agents. Whether we're looking at things like Xanax for reducing anxiety, marijuana works. You're looking at pain management instead of opioids like oxytocin or fentanyl, marijuana works. If you're looking at glaucoma, marijuana works. How you doing, Dolores? Thank you for showing up. Appreciate it. So we step back and we take a look. Kind Idaho is working on this because we have patients in the state of Idaho who need access to this, because we know that the use of medical cannabis, medical marijuana, does get people off of pharmaceuticals that are generally not healthy for them. Somebody can swap out upwards of 10 different medications that they're taking in any given time with medical cannabis, and all of a sudden, they're back in the game. They're in charge. They know what they're doing. The number of people I currently work with in and out of activism, in and out of different jobs, in politics, in careers, they are functional because they have access to medical marijuana that they self-regulate. So getting back to that, the big thing is today, the Secretary of State has finished with phase one of our ballot initiative process. Actually, they finished up 2 of the phases. One is the financial analysis, and of course, the other is the legal analysis. Secretary of State finished that up today, so it is ready for Kind Idaho to pick up, review the suggested changes made by the Secretary of State, and what we need to do to consider moving forward. No profit for anybody in the medical industry, the private prison system, the justice system. For medicine, you can grow on your patio. That's why it's illegal. Okay. This state can't tax it if you're growing it on your back step. Kind Idaho, we make allowances in the bill for home grow of up to 6 plants. That's actually pretty generous, depending on how good your harvesting skills are, how good your grow skills are. But home grow up to 6 plants for those who are financially unable to make the regular trips across state borders to dispensaries or to, I think we have Kind Idaho has an allowance in the initiative. Now, this is going to change, of course. Reason why is because nothing makes it through the ballot initiative process without the legislators wanting to add their 2 cents after it's been passed. But right now, the recommendation is anybody who lives more than 25 miles from an Idaho licensed dispensary. Yes, and we got rules about that in the initiative, the Idaho licensed dispensary. And this is one of those things. We actually have different organizations that are involved in this process. Ironically, most of which only exist by Idaho Administrative Code, which technically right now shouldn't exist. That's a completely different story. We'll talk about neglect and negligence of the Idaho State Legislature at another time. But the Idaho Liquor Board, each county has a liquor board that is responsible for licensing liquor distribution for bars. Okay, that same liquor board, according to the Kind Idaho initiative, all 20 pages of it, yes, it's a long one, all right, folks, is we had to write an entire chapter on this. That same liquor board is also going to be responsible for the licensing of the dispensaries in each county. Now, your medical card is responsible for being filed through an application either through the Department of Health and Welfare and or your physician. So we managed to integrate in a couple different organizations. Your physician to get your medical card, your health and welfare application for your home grow. Mike, the nice white women will be historical. Actually, the historical hysterics associated with it. Start liking black jazz musicians. Yes, those darn Black Panthers. Yes, part of the reason for making marijuana illegal in the 60s and the 70s, Nixon's war on drugs. It wasn't a war on drugs. It was a justification to go to war against the anti-war movement, the domestic terrorists of the 60s who were fighting, our military adventurism. It's interesting. Here we are, 50 years later. In 1972, I think was Nixon's election. 2022, here we are again revisiting the idea of legalization. What is and is not a domestic terrorist? What is and is not an international terrorist? What is and is not the responsibilities of the United States in policing the world? And here we are talking about legalization in one of the last states to even consider it. And there's a number of political reasons for it. There's a number of economic reasons for it. And there's a number of legal reasons why Idaho has been so reluctant to take this particular leap, which is why the ballot initiative is such a critical process here in the state of Idaho. Now, we're like one of 20 states, something like that, that actually has a ballot initiative process so that the people can participate in their own governance. They can write their own rules and put it to the legislature and say, these are the rules we, the people, believe are appropriate for governing we, the people. We got an awful lot of dominionists who are sitting in the legislature saying, no, this is a representative republic. And those of us who are elected every 2 years are the only ones who can decide what is the appropriate kind of government for you. Yeah. They're assholes. All of them. Assholes. They actually believe in their superiority over the people by virtue of their election. Oh, yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Even here in Idaho. Idaho, marijuana convictions, profitable, civil asset forfeitures for law enforcement officers. Especially as we're looking at that I-84 corridor between, it's a 60-mile stretch. It goes through 2 counties for everybody who's driving from Boise to Ontario, Oregon to spend that $2 million a week. That's an awful lot of civil asset forfeiture for people making that drive. People who are getting arrested, people who are getting convicted of possession, being put into the system for possession. And there's a reason why people only buy under the 3-ounce amount for THC product. It's so that it's a misdemeanor coming back. Now, of course, they're still bringing drugs. It's still interstate trafficking of a controlled substance. So there's federal rules that go with it. But again, civil asset forfeiture for law enforcement officers. They can take your car. They can take your RV. They can run you through the system, whether they intend to actually prosecute you or not. They can make their lawyer friends charge you to represent you for something that they may or may not actually decide to do any charges with. So the lawyers, the defenders, the people who are supposed to get you out because you didn't commit a crime against the people are making buku bucks defending you from these laws. So you got an awful lot of lawyers out there who are defense attorneys that don't want marijuana legal in the state of Idaho. Many of the other ways. Highway median went from green to brown to black and white. Green and brown to black and white. Yes, black and white, because the Idaho State Police are driving the black and white SUVs. But yeah, the day they legalized in Oregon, it was busy, keeping people down, making sure that they understood that the Idaho State Police did not approve of their interstate trafficking. Honestly, I would rather they be in possession of it and driving home rather than using it in Oregon and then trying to drive home. It's all right. We also have documentation out there that chronic users, people who smoke all the time, are as good at drivers while high than they are when they're not high. Studies have been done. It is proven. That said, don't try and drive high your first time. That's just stupid. All right. How many bar association lobbyists carry envelopes into the Capitol? Woo! It's going to be a big one. Reason why is because all those bar association lobbyists, they want to be part of the modifications to the legalization that gives their companies primacy, such as how to regulate the growing of it. United States Department of Agriculture will have their piece. There will be others that will go in and say you need specific conditions, in order to grow in this specific soil, in order to grow in this particular area. You need to be able to grow in, specific ways, specific things, and do all of that. Yes. I think it's November 8th, 2024, when that passes, and everybody finally knows which legislatures will be sitting in seats that next January. And that's actually interesting because once we get it approved for the ballot, that starts a whole different level of politics, because once it's approved for the ballot and everybody knows it's going to be passed, then all of a sudden, wild ditchweed truly is hard to regulate. Guerrilla growths, they show up everywhere all the time. But once it's on the ballot, once we know it's on the ballot, then all of a sudden, all of that marijuana money will start flowing into the states, into candidates' pockets. Those pro-marijuana candidates. We support legalization. We support the people who want to pay us to let them grow. We want to support the people who pay us to let them sell. Yeah. But that's an interesting thing about the political process here in the state of Idaho. If any of you know anybody out there that wants to make sure that medical marijuana succeeds in the state of Idaho, somebody who wants to be part of that success, send them my way, folks. Send them my way. I'll be able to introduce them. I'll be able to talk them through the process, and I will be able to let them know who they need to talk to make sure they get a license to grow and sell in the state of Idaho. Because it's a process, folks. It's a process. It's an ugly, stinking, dirty, filthy, corrupt process. But it's the process we got. Is it unethical to take their bribes and then not vote? Well, it's not ethical to take their bribes in the first place. But if somebody hands you $100,000 and you don't vote the way you're supposed to, I don't imagine they're going to be particularly happy with you after the fact. Just saying, there is unethical, and then there's just stupid. These people didn't get money to bribe politicians by being suckers. Just saying. So, now Mike brought up an interesting point, and that is, the original war on drugs was about fighting the peace movement. It was about systematically destroying peace activist organizations in the United States that were fighting our involvement in Vietnam. So, here we are now. We're in a war. This is actually an interesting war because NATO is without a doubt using the Ukraine as a proxy to fight Russia. Literally, we have spent so much money in Ukraine supporting their military effort Ukraine is now the third best funded military in Europe. I don't even know who the number one. Well, Russia's number one. And Russia couldn't commit all their military to going into Ukraine. So it's like number three in Europe. Ukraine has kicked number one, Russia, out of Ukraine, and they're going through the retreat process. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with what's gone on in the Donbass region and a couple other areas, as Russia proceeded to retreat from what NATO claims should be Ukrainian held territories, which also includes the Donbass region. Uh, several of the militias and several of the military units have gone into the Donbass region and Crimea and other places that have since been vacated by uh, Russian troops. They've started going after the collaborators. The people who still worked, that still taught schools, that still fed children, that still provided medical care for people in need, are being systematically hunted down and eradicated by the Ukrainian militias that are now going into the Donbass region, going after Russian collaborators. They're being doxxed, they're being exposed, they're being abused. They're basically being excommunicated and in some cases even executed as a result. And we are seeing more and more of that happen under the guise of the militias, as Russian NATO forces do the back and forth in Ukraine. Now, this is another one that's a problem because while we have certain people who are cheering on the Ukrainian war effort, we back Ukraine, and the ones who are going, we back Russia, in that whole fight of who's actually right in what's going down in Ukraine. We were also looking at the war effort in Armenia, where currently Turkey and Azerbaijan are both systematically destroying populations in Armenia. Okay, this goes back into the issue of the Turkish issue with Kurds. Because Armenia is another one of those areas where the Kurdish have a stronghold. Kurdistan within Armenia, Kurdistan within Syria, Iraq, Turkey. And that entire region right there, before it was split up, with the destruction of the Ottoman Empire, the Kurds represented a single people, a single country, a single tribe. When they were split up, the powers that be, Germany, France, United States, at the end of World War I, said, Kurdistan no longer exists. Your people, the Kurds, will be divided among 4 other nations, and they will now be minorities in each of those nations rather than being the culture in a nation of their own, in their own tribal lands. So it's like you took what was a very proud tribal people that had their own lands. They were their own people. Oh God. And you're right, Mike. It all slaps different when you think that it's a handful of old draft dodgers pushing us into ruination and misery so they can say they're tough on something nobody wants to be involved in. Okay. These are chicken hawks. We know they're chicken hawks. All of them dodged, the draft for Vietnam. Most of them are that old. We got a couple others that enjoyed the role of being officers. Tom Cotton, he's another one of our hawks. He was an infantry lieutenant for 4 years during his military adventurism in order to justify his current seat as Kentucky congressman. You got a couple others that, enjoy the calling themselves a veteran, even as they're entirely dedicated to creating more and more and more and more combat veterans by sending them over to fight wars that America doesn't even know about. We are funding wars we don't even know about because our Congress, our Senate, our president doesn't want to tell us about them. Many of these people have never been to the front lines. Many of these people have never seen combat, never will see combat. They find the nice little protected tours where they get a claim that, they landed in Libya and were shot at when they weren't. Yeah. Tom Cotton is bad. Tom Cotton's a bad dude. But that's what we're looking at. We're looking at an awful lot of short timers who went over, did their time, got their awards, came back to become credible politicians in Congress based on, wounds, service time, etc. And they continue to advocate for more dead American kids in order to justify the expansion of the empire. Right? Never been shot at. How do you spend all that time with never getting shot at? So that's one of those things that we're looking at. Your boy Joe, Idaho Joe here. He's fighting the war still as a veteran, fighting our involvement in it. He's advocating for veterans for medical marijuana. Reason why is because medical marijuana works on combat developed post-traumatic stress injuries. It helps veterans get better. And it's still illegal in the state of Idaho. Nate Fink, less Tom Cotton. Long live Smedley Butler. Okay, Smedley Butler, U.S. Marine Corps General. War is a racket. He wrote the book. He knows what was going on. Dude, I agree. Recreational works too. That said, Idaho is a conservative state. They're not prepared to go there. So we still take care of our patients. We still take care of our people who need healing. And through that, we make sure that medical marijuana, is legal for those who benefit more from the use of medical marijuana than they do from any of the other prescriptions that are currently being jammed down their throat. High cost pharma. Mike pointed out, there's no money if you're growing your own medicine in your backyard. Tax don't get theirs. And you're right, Mike. Take the win you can get. I love the people in Idaho, but they are conservative. That is one of those things about Kennedy Democrats and Eisenhower Republicans, whose parties have left them, is whether you want to go regress traditional values or whether you want to move forward with progressive values. We are conservative. And we don't move fast on anything because unintended consequences hurt. Radical change sucks. Always has, always will. Thank you, Republicans, for bringing the latest radical change. Thank you, oh, so very, very much for sending us backwards 60 years in a single friggin' week. We weren't ready for that, guys. We really weren't. You're going to get an awful lot of pushback because unintended consequences, folks. Yes, sirree. That's why we take it slow here in Idaho. We talk slow, we move slow, because we are being mindful of our choices and intentional in our actions. Because unintended consequences suck. Yes, they do. And yeah, Joe, we take the win we can get, especially when it comes to war. Get people out of war. Get people out of war. And that's one of the few things that Idahoans can believe in radically. Bring our troops home. Defend the guard. Stay out of international wars. Yeah. Senator Bora. Yes, Senator Bora. Mount Bora. Those of you who grow up in Idaho, you may not know about Senator Bora and his role in Washington, D.C. during the end of World War I when we were talking about the League of Nations. Senator Bora was a representative from Idaho. Yeah, we speak potato. We speak potato, patata. We do that. We do that. But Senator Bora talking about U.S. involvement in the League of Nations following World War I. Senator Bora was a John Birch Society advocate. Isolation. Do not get yourself entangled in foreign affairs, in foreign alliances. Said, I'm personally want to go back a little bit further. Reason why is because if goods don't cross borders, troops will. Free trade. It builds good relationships, people. They want what we got. We want what they got. That builds good relationships. And you're not killing each other over it because you both established a fair price for what it is you have to sell, what it is you have to provide. Free trade. Better than war, man. Better than war. Oh dear, the idea the CIA funded democracy. Oof. We all know that lie, don't we? It's one of those things that we're looking at right now. We are continuing to see developments on the war front. I talked a little while back about the daughter of a Russian problem is none of those free trade agreements that were negotiated on behalf of the US were actually free trade agreements. They all came with very, very dangerous strings attached to them. Very dangerous strings attached to them. Most of it involved labor exploitation in those foreign nations that we agreed to trade with. U.S. corporations enjoy cheaper labor in both in both Mexico and Canada. We enjoy cheaper labor in China. We enjoy cheaper labor in the Philippines and Sri Lanka, and basically everywhere we've set up a free trade agreement. Can't say as I'm familiar with the Dulles brothers. I'm familiar with the Koch brothers. Know them and their pro-corporate, agenda and a number of things that go on with that. But one of the things that we're looking at right now, from an Idaho perspective, is the fact that we are continuing to send troops where we should be building trade routes. We have the ability to trade. Many countries in the world have the ability to produce things we want more effectively, more efficiently. There's no reason we cannot develop proper free trade agreements with them. The kind that we did with the Pacific Free Trade Agreement and the China Preferred Trading Partner and the North America Free Trade, because we all know those weren't really free trade agreements. Those were pro-corporate U.S. agendas. Actually, we just send troops. We just sent troops for like forever. Haiti didn't like the deal that the New York Stock Exchange had negotiated, so they weren't playing. New York Stock Exchange told, God, who was it? Woodrow? It was Woodrow. Told Woodrow invade Haiti. Teddy Roosevelt with his cosplay charge up San Juan Hill. That we're still paying interest on the bullets Teddy used. The occupation of the Philippines, the whole Spanish-American War thing, where he took over Haiti and Cuba and the Philippines and a number of other places. Yeah. We didn't even bother trying to trade. We just sent troops. We just sent troops and said, yeah, no, we're just taking it. Afghanistan, we just sent troops. Iraq, we just sent troops. Somalia, we just sent troops. Detect a pattern here, man. I detect a pattern. It's time to stop sending troops. It's time we actually made our corporate negotiators actually do their friggin' jobs. Negotiate, Chiquita, overthrow your government for Cavendish. We did that. That was troops and oil, troops and mining. Yep, that's what we do. That's what we do. Send over the troops, pull out the resources. Send over the troops, pull out the resources. Yeah. Then the Dulles Airport. Yep. Texas. Ugly, ugly history. But yeah. So we continue to send troops. We continue to do that, which means that in order for us to actually stop an awful lot of that, we actually need to stop paying for the wars. We need to stop sending troops. We need to stop the war. Scott Horton, antiwar.com. One of the strongest advocates out there. He's not a veteran, but he's done an awful lot of interviews with veterans. He's done an awful lot of talk shows. He's done an awful lot of events related to it. Bringourtroopshome.com. No, it's bringourtroopshome.us. Dan McKnight has been an amazing champion for that. Him and his organizations. There are bipartisan, tripartisan organizations across the United States. They're currently leveraging Defend the Guard bills in their various legislative bodies. There are actionists, activists who are going around collecting signatures on Defend the Guard initiatives to make sure that state governors cannot send your guardsmen, your homegrown militia, over to foreign wars to die for multinational corporations. Hawaii, Nicaragua, Philippines, Malaysia. Yeah. Chiquita, the banana wars. We called them banana republics for a reason. We sent over troops to defeat the rightful rulers for bananas. And then once we got the bananas, we installed a banana republic that answered to the fruit companies. And yeah, we don't. I think we know better, my man. I think we know better. Second, everybody says that they're worried about somebody invading us. Everybody's Second Amendment rights guarantees no other nation in the world is going to invade the United States. Never going to happen. I know it's attributed to Yamamoto. Doesn't matter who it's actually attributed to. Doesn't matter who actually said it. But even today, even in modern America, where subsistence hunters are no longer the rule and more becoming the exception, we still have more guns behind every blade of grass, ready to lay down their lives and kill the enemy. That's the Pattonism right there. That's the Patton. What was it he said? It is not your job to lay down your life in defense of liberty. It is your job to make sure that other poor sucker on the other side is the one that dies trying to take it. I'm sure that was paraphrased badly. Paraphrased truly badly. But that truly is the job of every militiaman in the event that we are ever invaded by a foreign military service. Make sure every one of them is given the maximum opportunity to die for that mistake. We don't need generals to tell us how to do that. No, we don't. And you're right, James. Second Amendment, it's also there to remove the tyranny of the American government. Whether it's built into the Constitution, whether it's built into the Bill of Rights, whether it's built into the Declaration of Independence, it is built into our founding documents. It is built into the idea that the consent of the governed is the only just authority any government can ever exercise. Second, we decide that we no longer consent to be governed in the manner in which they have chosen to govern. Once the governed no longer consent to the manner of governance. And that's really where we're at right now, folks. That's really where we're at. Do we consent to the manner in which we are being governed? Do we consent to the rules and regulations? Do we consent to the favoritism of the corporations that we now recognize are people? We invented the Second Amendment. The French invented the guillotine. One problem, two different solutions. Got the opportunity to make things happen, folks. Come November, you always have two means of showing your dissatisfaction with the government. One's at the ballot box, and the other's bullets. Hopefully they take the hint at the ballot box, right? I know I'm not ready to kill. I know a lot of my fellow veterans aren't ready to do that either. Someday, we may find that we have no choice. A lot of us have seen what war does to the nations where we've walked on the soil, where we've participated in the oppression of the people. We know what a civil war will do to America. This is not something we want to know in a biblical way. No, we don't. We're still fighting for a civil resolution. We're still fighting for a civil solution. We still believe in peace. Good point, Mike. No sane person wants it, but no smart citizen should let them know we don't. I think the actual phrase right there should be no smart citizen should let them know we won't. Because we will. I don't think anybody should make any doubt about that. You make it bad enough. We will. It's not good. Civil society, civil community, or civil war. I don't think there's anything civil about war. There really isn't. Oh, yeah. Marijuana activism, folks. Get out there. There's still states where it's illegal. Find your way to make it legal because that belongs to the people. That is medicine made for the people that can be grown by the people. And because it's a plant, no man made government should be restricting how it's used or how we can access it. But we take our victories where we can, folks. We take our victories where we can. Get out, support legal marijuana, support decriminalization, support getting people out of prison for using marijuana. Be active. Yeah, yeah. We don't need permission. We can break the law. Problem is that all of a sudden puts our civilians in conflict with our civil service personnel who have been told we can't have something. We don't want to be killing cops over this, folks. We really, really don't. But freedom. Medical marijuana is a right. It's a right we've been denied in Idaho for over 100 years. It's a right that's still denied in several states. It's a right that's been denied by the federal government. It's a right has been denied because it is my body, my choice, my medicine. And fight for your rights because there are still people who need it, who will not break the laws to get what's best for them. People who won't break their own chains. James, don't do that to me, man. How many permission cards in your wallet? That's harsh. That's harsh. Why would you do that to me, man? Okay. Let's see. What else? There was something. What was that? It was marijuana war fronts peace now. Ukrainian militias going after collaborators. Yep. I pretty much covered all of the high points today. Support your local activists. Support your anarchists because they're the ones out there fighting. They're the real ones fighting to make sure there's less government interfering in your life. I understand you may not want all the rules gone, but they're the ones that are still fighting to make sure that you are living with fewer rules and more choices in the way you live your lives. So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and check out. Freedom permit. James, I like my driver's license. Yeah. Roads. Okay. With that, I'm going to check out. Love you guys. Glad you were able to participate. Remember, be strong, be safe, be part of your communities. Family, friends, community. As long as you got those three, you can make anything happen. See you next week. Love you guys.